Lucien Junto of Lincolnwood wrote, "How tragically hip is Gordon Downie? Why is our great nation oblivious to the quality of his band?" While many of us in Chicago were at Wrigley Field August 20th, listening to Eddie Vedder talk about his love of Gord Downie and the Tragically Hip, the Hip was playing its farewell concert in Kingston, Ontario, a concert in which Downie's brightly colored costumes and white hat belied the tragedy of an innocent man receiving a death sentence, terminal brain cancer. What do you do when you hear that from your doctor? We know what Gordon Downie did. He gathered his band behind him and he traveled across the country that claimed him. Stadium concerts, all sold out. For all the support the Tragically Hip received in America, and especially in Chicago, we never afforded these Canadian superstars the adulation many of us would say they deserved. But consider how Canadian this band was. Unlike Canadian legends like Neil Young or Joni Mitchell, the Hip never moved out of their home country, and their songs were rich and memorable landscapes of their own country.
At the 100th meridian, at the 100th meridian, at the 100th meridian, where the Great Plains begin.
Songs about 19th century fevers spread by Lake Ontario.
I'll tell you a story about the lake fever. We can skip to the coital fury.
The stories in the songs were universal, but they happened in real places.
It was in Bobcaygeon. I saw the constellations reveal themselves one star at a time.
But rather than mourn our own country's failure to recognize a band's majesty, we should consider how lucky we were to see the Tragically Hip in smaller venues. New Year's Eve at the House of Blues, a club date at Martyrs. Gord Downie is a soft-spoken gentleman in interviews, thoughtful, intent on sharing. We once spoke about the title of the album, We Are the Same. He revealed the contradictions in that phrase, saying, "We are, but in many ways we are not."
I think the title at once is meant to be very welcoming and very inclusive. It's the type of thing we try and say to each other. It's the type of thing we want to hear from each other. But I think we all sort of harbor a slight suspicion that, in fact, we're not, and we never can be. And yet, in spite of those odds, we persevere and we continue.
And on stage, Downie was a performer who knew how to lose himself in the music. Playful, intense, he knew how to draw an audience closer. This is hard for me. If you were a fan of the Tragically Hip, you wish you could sit down with Gord Downie face to face and tell him how much his music affected you and thank him for his kindness and his commitment. A conversation with Downie was filled with rare perspective.
We had Gord's oldest and my youngest, and these Hip children span 20-odd years together. This is our greatest legacy.
For a good life, you just might have to weaken and find somewhere to go. Go somewhere we need. Find somewhere to grow. Go somewhere we need.
Downie will leave us a catalog of music that stands up after all these years to the traditional legends. He was an advocate for First Nation rights, a one-time hockey goalie who knew you couldn't stop them all. The beginning of the Epic Depression Sweet song came from a night in Chicago.
I hear the not now. The siren far away, closing steadily.
I think you were happening to mention New Year's Eve here in Chicago a couple years ago. But yeah, in this Chicago, the city of sirens. I mean, you just really, I like the idea of a siren, and I think that's was here that I thought a siren really is making that sound, like not now. I mean, really, what is a siren saying? Somewhere somebody is saying, not now. There's so much to do. There's so much to see.
So much to see. Still so much to see. On Saturday night, August 20th, 2016, Gord Downie made his peace with his legions of fans and with his band. May he be allowed the time to find his own measure of peace and grace.
Thank you. You're wonderful. Thank you for that.
This is Lin's Bin on 93 XRT.